This neglected German shepherd was found chained to a pole, so matted and filthy she was barely recognizable as a dog. Everyone walked past, ignoring her desperate cries, until one woman made a decision that would change everything. The transformation is so incredible, you'll need tissues when you see her now. And the miraculous twist that followed? It left an entire community in tears. Scene 1. The discovery. Rain fell in sheets that cold November morning as Melissa Sanders hurried toward her bus stop, already late for her shift at the downtown veterinary clinic. Cutting through an abandoned lot, she nearly missed seeing it, a dark shape huddled against a rusted pole, partially hidden by weeds. Something made her stop. Melissa turned, squinting through the downpour toward what she first thought was discarded garbage. It was a dog, a German shepherd, female, chained to the metal pole with a heavy chain so short she could barely lie down. Her condition was horrifying. Fur matted with dirt and waste formed solid plates over her emaciated body. Open sores marked the raw skin where the chain had rubbed her neck. Most disturbing of all were her eyes, clouded with infection but somehow alert, watching Melissa with a haunting mix of fear and hopelessness. "Oh my God," Melissa whispered, approaching slowly. "How long have you been here?" The dog didn't move. No sound. No resistance, just slightly flattened ears. The chain was locked with a heavy padlock to a collar that had become partially embedded in her neck. Nearby, a filthy container held stagnant rainwater, her only hydration. No food bowl, no shelter from the elements. Judging by the waste and the circular track worn into the dirt, the German shepherd had been there for months. Melissa's bus passed by. She didn't even glance at it. "I'm going to help you," she said, kneeling at a safe distance. "I promise." She called the clinic. "I'll be late. I found a dog. No, not just a stray. This is deliberate neglect. The worst I've ever seen." Scene 2. The rescue. Within 30 minutes, her supervisor arrived with a van, a crate, muzzle, and bolt cutters. 2 other vet techs joined them. Even these seasoned professionals were visibly shaken. "This is criminal," said Dr. Richards, the clinic's owner, who had come himself. "Absolutely criminal." Surprisingly, the rescue was calm. The German shepherd offered no resistance as they muzzled her and cut the chain. Maybe she lacked the strength to fight, or maybe she knew this was her only chance. As they lifted her into the crate, her eyes met Melissa's. Something passed between them, a connection that would change both of their lives. "We'll call her Hope," Dr. Richards offered. "No," Melissa said softly, still holding the dog's gaze. "Her name is Duchess. I don't know why, but it's her name. She's not what they made her. She's who she was meant to be." Scene 3. The clinic examination revealed the full extent of Duchess's suffering. Ribs and hips jutted from her frame, pressure sores, infections, broken teeth, paw pads worn raw. Most alarming was the embedded collar. "She's severely malnourished and dehydrated," Dr. Richards reported. "Multiple infections, anemia, likely heartworm positive. I'm amazed she's still alive." Melissa stayed long after her shift ended, helping sedate Duchess and begin the long process of shaving away matted fur and treating wounds. As layers of filth were removed, the real Duchess began to emerge, a purebred German shepherd, maybe 3 years old. "She must have been beautiful once," noted Dr. Matthews, the senior vet. "She will be," Melissa said. "I'll foster her through recovery." Even she was surprised by her own words. Melissa lived in a small apartment that didn't allow pets. She worked long hours. She'd never owned a dog as an adult, but something about Duchess had awakened something fierce, a protective instinct she couldn't ignore. Scene 4. The first miracle. By evening, Duchess was stabilized. Melissa made frantic calls, her landlord, rescue groups, anyone who might help. Then a breakthrough. Laura Chen, a client whose elderly golden retriever had recently passed, saw Duchess's photo on the clinic's private feed. I have a house with a fenced yard, Laura said. I'm not ready for another dog of my own yet, but I'd be happy to foster her during recovery. It was the first of many miracles. Scene 5. Recovery begins. At Laura's quiet home, Duchess began her rehabilitation. The spare bedroom became her sanctuary. A bed, a bowl, a crate with the door removed. Let her set the pace, Dr. Matthews had advised. The psychological wounds may take longer than the physical. For days, Duchess remained in the corner, watching, silent, present in body, but absent in spirit. Melissa visited daily, sitting quietly, reading aloud. On the 5th day, Laura sent a photo that made Melissa cry. Duchess still in her corner, but with her head resting on the bed beside her. Progress, Melissa replied. Scene 6. The Breakthrough Week 3. Laura was working on her laptop when Duchess, unprompted, moved from the corner to the dog bed for the first time. That night, Melissa sat on the floor near the bed and read softly. Just as she was preparing to leave, Duchess slowly extended her neck and sniffed Melissa's hand. The contact lasted only 2 seconds, but it was deliberate, a choice. In her car, Melissa wept for the courage it took to trust. Scene 7. Viral Hope. Melissa shared a short video, a personal update for friends, of Duchess resting her head in her lap. The next day, it had over 100,000 views. The moment a formerly abused dog chooses to trust again. Local news picked it up. Then a national morning show featured Duchess in their Heroes Among Us series. Melissa and Laura launched a nonprofit, Duchess's Second Chance. Donations poured in, awareness spread, and through it all, Duchess kept healing. Scene 8. The Transformation. By the 3rd month, Duchess had gained healthy weight, completed heartworm treatment, and begun basic training. Her coat grew in thick and glossy, her posture proud, her spirit undeniable. She's not just a German Shepherd, the visiting shelter vet remarked. Someone paid a lot for her as a pup, and then they threw her away. But Melissa had not. But with Tyler, a withdrawn teenager with severe burns, her approach transformed completely. Duchess simply rested her head gently on his bed, maintaining calm eye contact until, remarkably, the boy who had refused to engage with therapists reached out to touch her ear. She somehow knows exactly what each child needs, observed Dr. Patel, the hospital's director of integration therapy. It's beyond standard therapy, dog training. The success of that initial visit led to a regular schedule at the hospital. Twice weekly, Duchess worked with selected patients. Her calm presence created space for emotional and physical breakthroughs that often eluded traditional methods. Most notable was her work with nonverbal children. Her capacity for connection transcended the limitations of language. Parents reported that children who struggled to communicate with humans would sometimes whisper into Duchess's attentive ears or express themselves through touch, things they couldn't articulate with words. She's not just sensing their emotional states, Dr. Patel noted. She's actively responding to unspoken needs. I've worked with therapy animals for 15 years and have never seen this level of intuitive interaction. The hospital began formally documenting Duchess's work, collaborating with researchers studying animal-assisted therapy. Preliminary findings suggested that her own trauma history might have created specialized neural pathways related to emotional detection and response. Essentially, a form of shared experience that facilitated deeper connection. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. A bus carrying children from a Special Olympics training event had crashed on the highway. Multiple injuries had been reported, and dozens of traumatized children were being transported to hospitals, including the children's facility, where Duchess regularly worked. They're asking if you and Duchess can come, Laura explained. They're setting up a crisis response area for the children who aren't physically injured, but are experiencing trauma reactions. Within 30 minutes, Melissa and Duchess arrived at the hospital, where the emergency response was in full operation. Dr. Patel met them at the staff entrance. "We have a room set up for the children who've been medically cleared but are showing signs of acute stress," she explained. "Many are nonverbal baseline or have gone nonverbal from shock." The room held approximately 15 children with various special needs, all from the bus accident. Some were crying. Others were completely withdrawn. A few displayed repetitive self-soothing behaviors. The overwhelmed child psychologists and social workers were doing their best, but the collective trauma energy was palpable. Duchess paused at the threshold, her body language shifting into working mode. Alert but calm, fully present, and completely focused on the humans in distress. Without specific direction, she began moving through the room, approaching each child with careful consideration. What happened next would later be described by Dr. Patel as triage of the soul. Duchess moved first to those in the most acute distress, offering grounding physical presence. With one boy who was hitting himself, she simply pressed her body against his legs until the repetitive motion ceased. For a girl silently crying in the corner, she placed her head gently in the child's lap. Most remarkable was her interaction with a severely autistic boy who had retreated entirely into himself. Duchess approached differently, not making direct contact, but positioning herself nearby, creating a sense of protective presence without intrusion. Gradually, the boy's rigid posture softened. His gaze eventually shifted to the patient shepherd waiting beside him. When he finally reached one hand to touch Duchess's ear, a social worker gasped. It was the first responsive action he had shown since the accident. "She's doing what we can't," Dr. Patel whispered, creating safety that transcends verbal reassurance. For over 3 hours, Duchess worked with the traumatized children while medical teams addressed physical injuries. The German Shepherd tended to wounds invisible but equally critical: fear, shock, and the disorientation of sudden trauma. Parents arriving at the hospital were astonished by the transformation in those who had spent time with Duchess. Children who had been unreachable were calm enough to communicate, whether through words, signs, or simply restored eye contact. As the situation resolved, Dr. Patel pulled Melissa aside. "What Duchess did today wasn't just therapy," she said. "It was crisis response at a level I've never witnessed from an animal. We need to document this properly." The hospital administration agreed. In the weeks that followed, they developed a formal protocol for animal-assisted crisis intervention, with Duchess as the model. Her intuitive approaches were analyzed by behavioral experts and translated into training guidelines for other therapy dogs, though all acknowledged that her specific abilities seemed uniquely enhanced. 1 year after Duchess's rescue, Melissa stood in the town square, watching as the mayor unveiled a bronze statue commemorating the German Shepherd's journey and impact. The life-sized sculpture depicted Duchess in her therapy pose, alert but calm, embodying the quiet strength that had become her hallmark. "This monument stands not just for one dog's remarkable story," the mayor announced, "but for the transformative power of compassion in our community and beyond." Duchess sat regally beside Melissa during the ceremony, seemingly understanding the significance. 3 years since her rescue, she was in her prime, a magnificent example of her breed, with a glossy coat that belied her traumatic beginnings. Only a small patch of white scar tissue on her neck remained, a visible reminder of the chain that had once defined her existence. The Duchess Foundation had grown into a nationally recognized organization. The crisis response protocol developed from her work had been implemented by emergency services in 7 states, with demonstrable improvements in outcomes for trauma victims. More significant was the effect on animal welfare legislation. Duchess's law, recently passed by the state legislature, strengthened penalties for animal abandonment, and mandated psychological evaluations for certain categories of animal cruelty. As the ceremony concluded, Melissa took a quiet moment with Duchess in the now empty square. "Did you know this was in you all along?" she asked softly, scratching behind the shepherd's ears. "This capacity to heal after being so broken?" The most profound aspect of Duchess's work had emerged over the past year, her unique affinity for trauma survivors across populations. From veterans with PTSD to children recovering from abuse, Duchess displayed an uncanny ability to connect with those whose experiences of violation and helplessness mirrored her own. "She creates a bridge across trauma," said Dr. Landry, the psychologist heading the Foundation's clinical programs. "Her presence communicates, 'I know what darkness feels like, and I'm here with you in it.'" For Melissa, the journey with Duchess had catalyzed profound changes. She had left her position as a veterinary technician to work full-time with the Foundation, completing additional certification in animal-assisted therapy. The frightened dog she had impulsively committed to helping had become the center of a vocation she had never imagined. As the celebration continued, Melissa watched Duchess approach a newcomer, a young woman in a wheelchair recently referred to their program after an accident had left her with both physical injuries and PTSD. The shepherd moved toward her with particular attentiveness, gently placing her head in the woman's lap in a silent offer of connection. The moment captured everything that made Duchess extraordinary: her intuitive recognition of suffering, her willing engagement, and her generous offering of her own hard-won wholeness as a bridge to healing. From abandoned prisoner to princess to healer, Duchess had not just survived but transcended her ordeal, transforming the very chain that once bound her into connections of compassion that continued to expand with each life she touched. If this tale moved you, if you felt the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more thrilling, emotional, and inspiring stories your way. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe dogs have an extraordinary sixth sense? Share your thoughts and personal stories with us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.